അവിടുന്ന് മണ്ണിറങ്ങണം പിന്നെ അവിടെ മാനസികമായിട്ടുള്ള ആണെങ്കിലും
Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. On this episode of Noon, Jessica, a paramedic and certified professional midwife, shares her journey into EMS and midwifery, shedding light on out-of-hospital births and obstetric emergencies. She discusses the rise in home births, the unique challenges of handling twins outside of the hospital, and the vital role midwives play in patient-centered care. Jessica also opens up about her passion for empowering EMS providers to confidently respond to special populations through education and training. Let's get started. Hey guys, are you looking for a top-notch first aid kit? Look no further than Jump Medic. Owned by a seasoned paramedic with over a decade of EMS experience, their kits are user-friendly and packed with essential supplies. From the most popular Pro Gen 2 to the compact hardshell kit, they've got you covered. You can even customize your own kit with the Build-A-Bag option. Enter the code NOON10, N-O-O-N, the number 10, and enjoy 10% off your order. Free U.S. shipping, and everything is HSA FSA approved. Visit jumpmedic.com and follow at JumpMedicUSA on Instagram. Stay prepared with Jump Medic. Awesome, Jessica. Thanks for joining us on the Noon podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Sam. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you have joined us today. I found you on Instagram through a very unique name called the Combat Midwife. Can I go ahead and get an intro?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm both a paramedic and a midwife, and I have been for quite some time. And I have been training the combat medics, flight medics, some different special forces units for years in their medical training that the military does. And I've always wanted to be a midwife, so I sprinkled that education in there. And my soldiers gave me the name, the combat midwife. So they started calling me that many moons ago, and it just stuck. And now the military kind of knows me by that, and then it just became my business name. So now I travel around the country, still working with the government, teaching different medical courses for the military. And yeah, I created this really awesome birth kit because my soldiers were going on a deployment. And they were like, we don't have anything to deliver a baby. And I was like, what are you talking? Well, yeah, I mean, what does that mean to you? Right? Like, what do you think you need in order to do that? Like, well, we don't have a birth kit that goes in our aid bags because, everything's weight based and you can only jump out of a perfectly good aircraft with so much on your back, et cetera. Right. So we kind of whittled some things down. So I will say that after a few adult root beers and dumping the aid bag out on the table, we decided what we did and did not need. Well, this turned into the Combat Midwife birth kit is what it got kind of coined. And so now I've created a kit where people can buy exactly what they need. It's the least amount of stuff you would need to be successful in delivering a baby.
That's really cool. Is that something you're selling online right now?
Yeah, so people can go purchase that kit, and it's in a watertight container that, if you want to put it on the shelf or you're going to take it with you overseas or whatever, it's going to be able to stand the elements and not get destroyed. So there's some awesome things that aren't in the standard OB kit that you would have in, say, an ambulance, because I have herbs that are in there that'll stop a postpartum hemorrhage. I have awesome things so you can take footprints of the baby. So if you are in an austere environment, and there's space on there for mom's thumbprints too. So if you are in a really austere environment and you need to prove, because we're talking about trafficking and stuff, and you need to prove that baby belongs to that woman, you've got now a document, you have a birth certificate that has baby's feet prints with mommy's thumbprints that go on there.
That's super cool.
Yeah, if your listeners send me an email and say that they heard about the birth kit and they want it, I will gladly give them a 20% discount. So just say, hey, I listened to episode whatever that you were on the podcast with Sam, and I'll absolutely bless them with that. I would be honored.
Awesome. That's so cool. Thank you so much for doing that.
So it's on my website, and people can get that if they want to have that. I've had people that are missionaries, religious or medical, that are just going to be overseas. I've had people that are working in Africa with different government projects. I've had, when I worked in the Afghan refugee camp, I took a bunch of these with me. So that way, because I was, delivering babies, and that was really helpful. So yeah, so it's everything you need, but in the most condensed version.
That's super cool.
I also have a course called Surviving Womanhood that's for medical professionals and non-medical professionals that really want to understand how to take care of women and children in weird, austere, off-grid kind of situations. And all the while still teaching EMS courses for departments. And I wear a lot of hats, Sam.
I can tell. Is it complicated to charge? I work for a really small business now in a flight company, and we're having hard times with, obviously everybody does, but getting the companies to pay out, like the insurance companies.
So I don't work with insurance companies for that exact reason. So I just accept cash only.
Oh, that's smart.
And even if you didn't know you were going to have a baby, you have 9 months to figure that out. However, health savings, there are several different health share networks out there. And I do like those because I get a phone call from one of their people, and they don't ask medical stuff because that's not what they're supposed to do, but they're just like, is so-and-so your patient, blah, blah, blah. And I say, yep. Can you confirm her pregnancy? Yep, sure, not a problem. I'll send that over. And then they just cut me a check. So I get paid in full from those Samaritan's ministries or some of the different health share networks.
That's super
out
cool.
there. Yeah, I've never had a problem with them. Yeah, they just call and confirm the basic stuff. Like, this person is pregnant, right? Like, this person is your patient. Yeah, absolutely.
And I wish every insurance company was like that in general. It'd be so much easier.
There are a ton of insurance plans that don't even have female care, let alone maternity care.
That's insane.
So when you go in and you're like, oh, I'm going to have Blue Cross Blue Shield, because everybody knows what that is since they hijacked Snoopy. And they think, oh, I'm going to have blah, blah, blah. But they make it so convoluted that you don't understand that there's hundreds of different policies. And on top of that, each policy has hundreds of different plans. So there's so many different options out there. So I've had people contact me and they're like, I didn't understand that I didn't have health coverage. Like, and I'm reaching out to you because my husband's wife's hamster's pet cat said that they could have a, cheaper birth with you. Those are not my most favorite referrals ever, but they wound up being pretty cool because they're like, I didn't even know this is something that I wanted, but I can't afford to have a baby in a hospital. So yeah, so then, what I basically tell them is you have two options. You can either very quickly jump on a health share network, which is it's gonna cost you a little bit more this time around because you're new, but it's better than not having anything. Or if that's not something you guys can do and you'd rather do a monthly payment straight to me, then sign here, here, and here.
So how much are you typically saving them?
You mean from having a hospital birth?
Mm-hmm.
Just walking in the door starts at $10,000, and that number was from 2010. Just walking in the door. That's not an IV, that's not baby care, that's not the pediatrician, that's not postpartum, that's just walking in the door.
That is insane.
That's just showing up. That's your Costco membership for walking in the door.
Your Costco membership. Oh man, that is so terrible. Our healthcare system is so bad.
Right, but a lot of people do the ridiculous garbage of, well, we need to have a national health system like Britain does. And I'm like, no, that's not a solution either.
No, it's not.
Because you have Canada that has that system. And now what they're doing is they're encouraging government sanctioned euthanasia for people simply because it's easier to off you than it is to take care of the problem. And they've lowered the age limit. So now children can do this without parental consent or guidance.
Without parental consent.
Right.
How is that okay? Oh my gosh.
So it's insane. Like they recently lowered the age. So let me get this straight. You have people with you have more people today that have psychiatric issues than ever before. And everybody has their own opinion on why that's happening. Don't even want to go there. But the facts are the facts numerically, right? And so now you have somebody who is mentally unstable making a decision to commit suicide by the hands of someone else who isn't that's called genocide.
Yeah.
That's eugenics. I don't care what pretty sticker you put on it. That's eugenics.
Yeah, that's insane. So it's interesting that you look at it that way, and you probably have a lot more information on it than I do because this is something that I studied several years ago in college. And like one of the problems that they have with healthcare that is paid for by the government for everybody is that it's just a job at that point, right? Like there's no competition to be better.
Correct.
Yeah, everybody just goes in. You're not going to have this high-end cardiologist who's practiced a bunch of different things to be a better cardiologist than the one at your local, hospital.
Right. And a lot of people like to do the whole, oh, well, capitalism is evil. Hold up. Let's time out for a second because let's use words with their proper definition. Because if we truly look at what capitalism is and look at it with the free market concept attached to it, then that is what we all want. Do you want the best pizza? Yeah, I'm going to go to the best pizza place. I don't want the government to tell me that the best pizza on the planet is Domino's. That's cardboard. That's disgusting. You eat that after a really bad shift and way too many beers. Okay, that is not New York style, that's not Chicago, and that's definitely not Italian pizza. Okay? So we want free market. No, do we want oligarchs? Do we want big companies? Like if you look at our news comes from 5 different networks, right? They all own everything. I don't want that. You don't want that. I want to be able to find my news however I want to. I want to be able to get my medical care from whoever I want to. And if that means that I want to go to I don't know, witch lady at the corner and buy some mallow root, then that's great. I can do that. If you want to treat your cancer with chemotherapy, knock yourself the heck out. That's not for me, but if that's what you want to do, go for it. You should be able to pick and choose that is the definition of a free market. That's not capitalism, right? Oligarch, that's it called a monopoly. It's like no one took government or psych or like understand how currency works or how money works in the world. It's just kind of crazy that you have people screaming going, we need socialized healthcare. And I'm like, do you understand what the word socialized means? I mean, 80 years ago wasn't that long of a time ago where we literally fought a world war over that.
Yeah.
So maybe not have somebody else tell you what you do with your healthcare.
It's for some people, but it's not for everybody. When people say they want that type of, medical choice or whatever, so that everybody should get covered. While I agree that medical costs should be lower, right? We are clearly being overpriced in everything that we're doing and that we're receiving, it should be different. You know what I mean?
Right. So those are two separate issues that gets blended into one problem, and they identify that as one issue that is solved by one solution. So we have to break it apart. The issue there was free choice, and the other issue there was cost. The reason that it costs so much is because of insurance billing.
Yeah.
That's why. So we'll use OB for an example. You as an this is the other reason I don't do insurance, is because federal insurance law states you can only do the OB global fee after the child is born. So I can't turn in the paperwork to bill until after the baby is born. That means I'm going to go a whole 9 months worth of work and not get paid.
Why would they do that?
I don't know, and I don't care. So it is easier for me to look at a dad and say, hey, yeah, you can pay your copay. Because that's the other thing, is people get really caught up and go, but I paid my copay.
Yeah.
I paid my 25, my $55 when I went in for every appointment. We didn't get that.
Yeah.
That's not mine. I have to bill you at the end. So then you have these people on TikTok and Instagram and whatever doing the whole bill comparison. The I had my baby, this is my bill.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped commenting on those because you can't fix stupid. Here's the thing. Most people will do more research on purchasing a vehicle than they do having a child.
That's true.
That's mind-boggling to me. All right. So, I can't help you. You're dumb. Like, I don't know what to say to you on that one. So they'll do this whole, Bob, I didn't know I was going to be charged for this, because everything's all itemized. But if you look at it, there's these huge astronomical fees. IV solution that's $800. This is not me being hyperbolic. I know this exists.
Oh yeah, a bag of my wife's medication that she has to have once a month just to get up every day costs 17,000.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just the medication bag. That's not
Right.
including the visit, that's not including the IV supplies. That's like 500 more dollars.
Right. So you have these people that are going in going, oh, I didn't know. No, dude, you chose not to know. You were so concerned about buying all the stuffed animals for the child that can't see past his nose and the cute outfits that you didn't pay attention to, actually, like, you didn't invest on being a parent.
I think it's good though that people are sharing. Like it really is insane that people don't do any like research on it, but I think it's good for, we need to share this. We need for people to see that this is an issue.
It is an issue, and I don't like well, I flew to Timbuktu to have my baby so it could be free.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Okay, time out. You're also the exact same person that's going to be like, we need to have an $85 minimum wage.
Yes.
Okay, so what you just said is you flew across the world to go to a country that doesn't value people and pays them so little, so you could have a free or highly discounted. There's a word for that. Trafficking, slavery might be ones that are coming to mind.
Yeah. It's so true. It's sad. Every opportunity I get, though, I share about how much. Well, I tell people not to pay any of their bills until it's gone through their insurance. Because in the last 3 years, we've been told that if we pay to a certain entity, right? Like my wife had a hospital visit that ended up being 2 weeks. And the guy told her, well, if you pay your 5,000 here, you're not going to have, like, you've met your out of pocket and you're not going to have to pay any other bills. Well, that's not true. That's not how it works. If Even though we were in the hospital for 2 weeks, it took them several more weeks to process the the hospital bills, not necessarily the insurance, but the hospital, just to figure out like, hey, we're going to charge for this, 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 and this. And then in that time, we're seeing, 7 or 8 different specialists, and we're getting those bills first. And they're like, well, no, you have to pay these bills.
No, that's not how that works.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. So now we're out of pocket and arguing for that money back. You know what I mean?
So I always encourage people to, especially when things are um, not life and death emergency, when things are, oh shit, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z procedure. We're going to plan this out in a couple of, I always tell people to get the cash pay option first. So never tell them that you have insurance. Never even bring it up. I don't have insurance, I'm cash pay. Because nearly every hospital system in the country is classified as a charity, which means they are required by federal law to have special buckets for people who can't pay. Okay, that's part one. Part two is the moment the word insurance comes out of your mouth, they know that they have to charge 3, 4, 5 times more than what it is so the insurance will cover something. Then they slap it on you to fill in the gap and hope that they get 25, 50, 75%. They know they're not going to get 100% of it. They're going to make a deal with you. So it's a game. So instead of doing, it's the same concept like when you go to buy a car and they're like, so what finance? Are you going to pay cash? Are you going to finance this? Whatever. And even when I've bought cars in cash, right? I've always said, I'm going to finance it and I want to go through you guys because they are going to give you the best deal because you want to get that, don't work on the payments. You don't want to do any of that stuff. You want to work on the number being the sticker number being the lowest it will be. And when they're like, they can build it in. So the car costs $10,000. They're going to give you a $1,000 break. They'll give it to you for $9 because they're going to build that $1,000 in the back end on interest because they think you're too stupid to even read the document in the first place, the contract in the first place. So you want to get it down to 9 and then flip a script on them and go, oh, I'm going to use I changed my mind. I'm using my credit union. Well, no, you can't go backwards
smart.
now, buddy. And that's the same concept you have to use if you choose to use insurance, right? And there are certain situations that does make sense. I just don't think it makes sense for birth more times than not. And there's going to be someone that's listening to this going, oh God, but I had the catastrophic event that happens one in, a lifetime type of thing. Yeah, I get that, but you can always add that later. And, there's meta whatever, right? That can fill in those gaps if you need to. That can be done later on. Because here's the thing, when we have somebody who is an at-risk population that comes into the hospital, and we know this because we're paramedics, we've dealt with this a zillion times. When you have someone who's homeless that comes into the hospital, they just automatically put them on state funding for healthcare right then and there. That's going to fill the gap, right? And that's the thing. So, plan on having a normal, healthy pregnancy. And if something goes wonky and you need something, then fill in the gap with it later. But always go for cash. Always go for cash pay because it's always going to be less.
It is very smart.
Whether it's a total knee or you're having a baby, it is always going to be a lesser amount.
Yeah, no, and that totally makes sense.
Right. But if we all did that, they would stop it because this is just a game. Like you can't slam people with hundreds of thousands of dollars when, more than 80% of the populace are living paycheck to paycheck and do not have a savings account. And millennials will most likely never own a
Yeah, there's a
house.
huge trend saying that it's not even it is millennials also, but the next generation.
Yeah, Gen Z.
So the Gen Z peeps they're showing that they're moving into the houses where their parents live because their parents owned houses and they're going to get those houses, right? Or their grandparents.
Right. Right. Because the boomers are the first phase of the boomers are getting old and dying. And then we got Gen X that are geriatric at this point, right? And numerically speaking. And so that is exactly what they're doing, right? Because those are the 3% rates if they still have a mortgage, which most of them do not. I mean, it's already paid off.
Yep. So you pay the annual taxes or whatever you have to pay on it, and that's about it. And that's a lot cheaper than a mortgage.
Right. It is, except most people don't understand you have to put everything you own into a
Yep.
trust, otherwise it'll go into probate. Wills are not helpful.
That's a whole other thing too.
Yeah, I didn't know this was going to be a finance podcast, sanctioned by the Combat Midwife, but there you go.
I read your article on EMS World about the different kinds of midwives that there are. And I had no idea that there were that many different kinds of midwives.
Well, the United States likes to make things complicated sometimes, like any other country. I know that was a jab. This is a great place to live. However, sometimes licensure, like in EMS, can be a little bit convoluted. And midwifery is one of those kind of convoluted things. In example, golly, different states have different rules for FNPs, for nurse practitioners, for PAs. Chiropractors have different scopes of practice in certain states, and it can be really, really confusing. So there are three different pathways to become a midwife in the US. This is not the case for our sisters in equal sister country. We're not sister countries, but our other top industrialized nations. But it is in the US. So there are two non-nursing pathways and there's one nursing pathway. So to make that easy, someone would have gone to nursing school, got a bachelor's degree, and then said, I just really fell in love with L&D, and now I want to be the one that's actually providing primary care and delivering the babies. Maybe they really love well woman care, geriatric well woman, etc. So they really want to have full scope of practice, and they want to work primarily in a hospital system or with access to that. Then they might go the nursing route. And then the two non-nursing pathways, one of those is governed by the Nurse Midwifery Board, and one of them is not. So there's a certified midwife, and they are not, and I'm using air quotes, they are not legal in all states. And everybody goes, oh, what does that mean? Remember, it just means there's an absence of legislation. It doesn't mean you're doing some sort of under the table drug deal. It means that there's not currently legislation in that state. For many years, EMS was not legal in certain states in the 70s because there wasn't legislation for us yet. So just remember, when we say things are not legal, it's just the absence of current legislation and laws and parameters. It's not a synonym for illegal.
That makes sense. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and then there's the third pathway, which is the non-nursing pathway, which really is the original midwife. It's the OG midwife. It's what's been around since the beginning of time. However you believe that we are on this planet. Midwifery is talked about in the Bible. There are different depictions hieroglyphically, like even on different walls in Egyptian culture. Like, midwives have been around since the beginning of time. They're one of the oldest professions. And so the CPM route is a certified professional midwife, and that is your other option. And a lot of people have the idea that, well, it's less education, or it's just not as you're not as educated to be a midwife. That is not true at all. The pathway and the expectations for each one of those categories are actually all the same. So it's quite silly to have three different pathways. Since I have an EMS background and I will always be an EMS person first, I chose the CPM route because it made the most sense to me. There is nothing in my heart that says, golly, I just really want to be a nurse.
I feel
That's just
that.
not my calling. Not because I don't think that nursing is valuable. It's because I don't like what nursing has become today. Today's nursing is not 1970s your auntie's nursing with the white hat and the white outfit. It's not the same. And I like autonomy over my patients, which I believe we have currently in EMS. I think there's some problems there and we may be losing that, but currently we have that. And so I am an EMS professional in my heart of hearts. And so I chose the CPM route. You can do brick and mortar, you can do distance learning, you can do a hybrid, which you would be doing both of those things in all three pathways. And so I chose it would be what we would consider a hybrid program at current time. It was called distance learning at the time. We didn't have the concept of hybrid learning. That wasn't a word we used for education and academia at the time. I'm sort of sounding like I came from Jesus's time. I did not. It's just we didn't have that concept because people weren't doing school on their computers then, right? Even 10 years ago, that was weird. No one was doing that.
Yeah.
Unless you were going to like Phoenix or something. Anyway, so you get my point. So anyway, I would have been doing what was called a hybrid program today. And so I was able to still be working with the military and teaching. And I was doing like a 60 to 80 hour work week every week, teaching them and marching soldiers and yelling at grown men and making them cry. And then I was delivering babies at night and on the weekends. And I loved it. It was great.
That's awesome. So how do you decide who's a good candidate for being a midwife?
Oh my gosh. How do you decide how did I know that I was going to be a good midwife? Is that the question you're asking?
No, like when you are working with patients, what are the like standards that they have to meet to receive a midwife?
Oh, you're asking me who's a good candidate for like out of hospital birth?
Yes.
Okay. So I personally believe that is your own individualized choice. You should have the choice to decide what your risk factors are. What is too risky for you? Some women and families would not feel comfortable in an out of hospital birth. I wouldn't encourage them to have an out of hospital birth, while others can't even dream of having a hospital birth. I personally would be that person. Leave me alone. I will be in my tub. Don't touch me. Don't talk to me. I know what I'm doing. I believe in my body. I am not broken. I do not need to be rescued by the medical community. I am a woman whose parts work. I truly believe that a lot of women's healthcare has been commandeered by the medical industrial complex to tell us that we're broken. If you look at even just, hey, I have a heavy period, what's the instant thing that comes out of their mouth? Go on the pill. Well, I wasn't talking to you about preventing pregnancy. I told you I was having problems with fainting, clots during my cycle. I have PMS. Just go on the pill. So you're telling me that horse urine that was compressed into a pill in 1960 is the catch-all treatment for literally every female problem on the planet? That's insane. Like that doesn't make any sense medically. So are there parameters that the midwife community have set forth? Yes. And I would say that those are probably very, there's an umbrella of those categories, but I would say that that's very different from state to state. So I'm from Texas. Um, if you want to be a licensed midwife in Texas and follow all of the rules, things like a vaginal birth after cesarean, you can't have more than two and have a vaginal birth outside of the hospital. I think that's really silly. That's looking at one situation and not treating the patient. You're just talking about what happened to her without looking at the full picture. Why did she have those C-sections? What was the cause? What was the outcome? What type of cesarean did she have? Was there any trial of labor? Look, those are the situations we have to ask about all of those things before we can actually decide what is safe and what is not safe for a particular
And I'm glad
person.
that you brought that up because that was going to be my next question. Like, is there some type of like medical exam that is performed by you guys when making that decision on whether or not you're going to accept that patient? And then if they're deemed like a high risk pregnancy for any reason, does that automatically rule them out? Does that take that choice away from them?
With me, no. I know how to think for myself and I know how to have a conversation with a family and I know how to figure out what is a good fit for them. We do a lot of talking. I mean, I'm going way back into childhood regarding healthcare, which is nothing, an OB would never do that. They would never sit with you and go, okay, so I want you to tell me about all the females on your maternal side and how their births went. An OB would never do that. I want you to tell me about when your mom started menopause. I want you to tell me about when you and your sister started their period. I want you to tell me about your sister's births. I want you, I, give me all the information. Let's talk about this. Tell me about your previous pregnancies, if there are any. Tell me about your previous births, if there are any. I want to know about you even outside of your female health. You know, what's your background? How many surgeries have you had? For what reason? What are your health conditions? Those are reasons to make a decision about an out of hospital birth versus not. And I truly believe that everybody should make the decision on what is risky to them, not what is risky to the people that are vested monetarily in a building or a licensure or whatever.
And I think I have a pretty good idea about how you feel about it, but what about somebody who's having twins?
Right. So there are several different types of twins, and most of the time, twins are going to be just fine at home. They fit like shoes in a shoebox most of the time. So you're going to have typically one up, one down. So a breech versus a cephalic, or sometimes referred to as a vertex. And that word is used more in EMS than it is the rest of medicine. Usually we use cephalic as a head down presentation terminology, but yeah, most of the time they're just fine. Twins, breeches, nuchal cords, shoulder distal, like these are all variations in normal. Some are more concerning than others, but most of the time, if you have a really good practitioner, you're gonna be just fine. I've delivered breech babies before. Um, if you can back up a trailer, you can deliver a breech baby. And I use it as an analogy because everybody goes, "Oh, that's a special skill with driving. You don't take driver's ed and learn how to back a trailer. That's something your grandpa or your uncle teaches you how to do, and you learn that later after you've mastered the basics." And so I'm using that word imagery so people understand, oh, yeah, okay, so you should have the foundation in midwifery, and then on top of that, you should add how to do these different things. So you should find somebody who knows how to deliver twins, who knows how to deliver breeches, because they do come with a different set of conditions. I hate using the word problems or scary things or risks or whatever, because that's all personal.
Yeah.
Like, again, what is risky to you, Sam, may not be risky to me. And what you deem risky, I might go, yeah, I kind of agree with it. Like, let's not do that. And that's the same even in EMS, right? Like, you can have a really seasoned paramedic and they're like, yep, okay, that's fine. We have a bariatric patient. They're not breathing. We got to intubate them. And they're like, oh, I've seen this a ton. Let's just ramp them and use the boot. Like, we got this. But you've got a brand new grad that's pissing on themselves in the corner because they're going malapati, malapati, right? They're freaking out. One is not better than the other. They are just at a different echelon of learning. They just haven't been there. They don't have skin in the game because they don't have time in the game yet.
Yeah.
It's just different. So you really should just have somebody that is knowledgeable about that stuff. But gosh, there are tons of different additional learning classes that you just put on top of those things. And you just need to understand that it's a variation in normal. Look, we're on the planet still. Okay. Like, we are not extinct. We're getting close because the birth rate is bad, and that's another discussion. But we're not extinct. And hospital birth has only been around for about 80, 90 years. Most people have historically and worldwide to this day are born outside the hospital.
Right. And even though we are super high tech and advanced, we have some of the worst birth rates in the world, right?
Yes, right. So the United States, so out of the top 10 industrialized nations, the United States spends the most money on OBGYN neonatal care. However, we rank last out of the top 10 industrialized nations. And if you want to look at the world, we rank 57th. So there are 56 other countries that have better mommy baby outcomes, mortality and morbidity, than the United States. And some of those are third world countries,
Yeah, that's insane.
or what we would define as developing nation. I think we have to say that differently now, right? Developing nations. So that's not great. The United States also has the highest C-section rates. It's in some areas of the country, it's 50% or greater. You cannot tell me that a third to a half of the population in the US cannot physically give birth. But you can tell me that it does cost more to have a cesarean section, and it is way fast. From open to close is less than 30 minutes. And so what do you want to sell more of? Births that cost $50, $70, $100,000 that you can do in about, let's just call it an average of 20 minutes, and you could go boom, 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 and still be at your golf tee time and your wife's pot roast? Or do you want to be up all night with a mom who's vomiting and pushing and working really hard to have a baby? Because it's called labor for a reason. It's hard work.
It is hard work. And now that you've mastered, right, both ends of the spectrum here between midwifery and being a paramedic, are there things that you would like to see that are increased in paramedicine for taking care of childbirth at home type of situations, or even in the back of an ambulance?
Yes, I would like our textbooks to stop saying drive fast.
Oh, I agree, but I don't think necessarily that that's a textbook. That I feel like that's more of a paramedic to an EMT, like get the fuck there, you know?
Right, but there are so many things in our textbooks that are so outdated and are not helpful. That's a that's an education problem as a whole. I am not singling out OB-GYN, neonate, and peds or special populations in general. I'm saying it's just that's the topic we're talking about today. It's a whole education problem, but there are so many things that are outdated, such as, the suctioning on the perineum, the clamping and cutting the cord right away, all the stuff. But if I could change one thing, which is my goal, and that is to just remove the fear associated with special populations, I would have left my mark on EMS.
How do you think we can do that?
I really think demystifying and pulling away the fear aspect. If you walk into a code and you're panicking, the code is going to go shitty. If you don't have confidence about your skills and your education and your team and your communication with the patient, whether they are conscious and alert or not, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be acting in fear. And whether we're acting as a practitioner or just a human being, when we make decisions based in either fear or grief, we make a bad decision every time. Every time. And so I would like to remove the fear associated with OB and peds. And that really just comes down to really good education, which is why I do what I do. It's the reason I go to departments and spend a weekend with them. So every shift gets to come to my class and be able to say, hey, this is what it really looks like. This is why I drag my mannequins through TSA to help people go, hey, which is very fun. It's always very humorous. Which is, so you can actually put hands on and real life stuff, not just the plastic hips, right? Like mine are interactive. You're wearing them, you're going through everything. It's all interactive. So you're like, oh, I get this now. Remember when intubation, when you were in paramedic school, was so scary? Or remember when you were in EMT school and you were learning to use the EpiPen and you were like, I could kill someone.
Yeah.
Like, it's so overwhelming. But when you did it over and over and over again, and you had an instructor that was pouring into you, and you had a really good team of co-students, right, that were in the trenches with you. And then you had a really awesome, FTO when you got to your first department. It took it away. It doesn't mean that you weren't shaken a little bit on your first call or even your first 20, but you eventually got over the hump. And what I want to do is I want to take these low acuity but high risk situations, and I just want to demystify them and go, look, I know that you're never going to love OB-GYN, neonate, and peds like I do. I get it. I'm weird. But I want to give you the nuggets of knowledge that I have. I just want to give them to you because I can't be with you everywhere. And I will one day no longer be doing this or no longer here. So I want to pass the torch to the people that are out there in the trenches or the next generation.
So what do you recommend for people who maybe are not as privy as some other companies to get the experience from, like somebody you coming in? What do you suggest to the people that are in low call volume departments that don't have access to all of that high fidelity gear that you carry around?
Well, one, I would say call me because I probably will make it work and we'll come out to your department.
Fantastic.
Two, the goal this year, 2025 is a big year for the Combat Midwife, the company. And my goal is to have those classes online on my website where people can just take them from, if they're in Australia, right, or whatever. So that is my goal. And it is happening. It's working there slowly but surely. But I would say by fall or so, we should have those all up. So you can be in your pajamas drinking your hot cocoa, and you can be able to watch the videos and get the knowledge, because it is really valuable, and you never know when you're going to need it. And it is those things that you don't use all the time. Like, I don't know about you, but I mean, I can probably we don't trike people often,
Yeah, no, we don't.
but when we do, holy heck, I'm glad I practiced that, right? There are, it's not just OB, it's other things too that we don't do very often in EMS. But when we need them, golly, I'm glad we had that training at the department, because having that hand eye coordination, that road memory, like, I'm so glad that we did it.
Right. And I'll use your example, right? You talked about when you were afraid of working codes and now you can just work a code like nobody's business. And I will agree with that. Like, the shitty part is that I can run a pediatric code a lot easier than I could run a pediatric like super sick kiddo,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there's so much other thought that has to go into and critical thinking that has to go into taking care of this kid to prevent them going into cardiac arrest.
Right, absolutely. You know, a lot of us, and I would even say, including myself, there's an essence of trauma in EMS that's kind of like, that's the fun stuff. And don't get me wrong, rolling up on scene and going, well, shit, that's not supposed to be there. That's kind of fun. There is an element of fun that is associated with that, and the rush, and everybody working to get somebody out of a car, and that adrenaline is addicting. Absolutely. So there are a lot of people that don't necessarily love the medical calls, but man, that is where you have to think. Like, it's a mental high. So if you like figuring out codes or deciphering things or being able to connect the dots, those can be really cool and really challenging. But when we add pediatric into it, and you've got a kid without a rash and a fever, and the fever was gone and now it's come back, and the mom doesn't understand what's going on, and she's gone to the pediatrician 3 times and they've sent her home. Holy, like, we have a lot of stuff to kind of decipher. And she's going, my kid is not okay. I need someone to listen to me. Girl, I got your back. Like, we're gonna figure this out. And being able to kind of pass those things off to other providers that are just petrified of kids is really cool. Like, watching the light bulb go off in their brain, and they're just going, gosh, I okay, like, nobody even told me that this is normal for them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this is what they look like, right? Most of my slides are just pictures with no words on there. And we're just destroying, we're taking apart the image. What do you see? What is going on in the background? What's happening in here? So we can kind of break it down and go and just take it away, just demystify the whole thing. So we're not scared. So we're actually feeling confident in our own skin, and we're feeling more in control and more in power of our education and our knowledge to then put it into practice.
And I do think that there is a huge trend moving that way where, like, before you would get a certain set of vital signs and a certain set of clinical, you know what I mean, showing, and you had to make the decision on what it was right then. So if you tell me that you have a 32-year-old female who's on birth control, ding, before you've even said that this person
Yeah,
has shortness of breath, I'm already
I
saying
already
she
know.
has a PE. Like,
PE.
yes. So we're moving away from that and we're
Right.
making more clinical diagnostic decisions so that we're just not putting these people into a thing. One of the worst calls that I had gone on was I've had a couple of really bad OB calls. I really don't like OB calls, and I talk about this a lot because the number of good births that I've seen in the field are very minuscule to the amount of bad births that I've seen.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate, but that's just how it rolled for me. That's not everybody's
Right,
experience.
right.
I recognize that. But like one of the worst ones that I had was for a young lady under the age of 18 who she knew she was pregnant, right? But she didn't want to admit
Hmm.
that she was pregnant. She was about 20, 21 weeks pregnant. And the fire department downgraded us because we were coming from really far away. So they told us, go ahead and go, from lights and sirens to no lights and sirens. So our response time was about 15 minutes to this call, maybe a little bit longer. And we get there and they're all hanging out and they're all chill. And the one female firefighter that's there is standing in the bathroom with this little girl. I take one look at this little girl who's sitting on the toilet. She's pale, diaphoretic. She looks like shit. And I'm like, bring the stretcher over. Like, let's get this going. The firefighter's like, well, she
Yeah.
says that she feels something hanging from her. I said, did you look? Did you inspect? Did you do anything while you were here? And she was like, well, no, I waited till you guys got here. Perfect. So this is like one of my very first OB calls. This is the very first time I've ever cut a cord. And this 16-year-old girl, I asked her, go ahead and stand up. We have a chuck. We'll get what's hanging, right? It's already been 20 minutes. Chances of viability are pretty low. So we get her on the stretcher. Sure enough, she has a baby hanging there about 20, 21 weeks. And there's nothing, right? There's nothing that we can do for this kid. But the mother is tachycardic at 200. She has a heart rate in the 200s. She's lost a shit ton of blood. I tell the firefighter, I said, get in the truck. We're going lights and sirens back to the hospital. I need you to start an IV, get her on the monitor. I'm going to take care of the baby really quick. We might have a placental delivery here pretty soon, but until then. So that was the very first cord I cut, and that was terrible. That was a terrible experience.
That is horrible, Sam. Oh my gosh. There's so many bad things that are going on in that one call.
So many bad things. And it comes down to education, right? Like,
Well, okay, so part of that is education, but I will also say that the other part of that is there's some gender issues going on there.
yes,
Um,
I would agree with that 100%.
and and I see this continuously with your male provider, and I am not saying that every male provider out there is doing this, but I do see that anything OB, anything bleeding out of the vagina, and anything to do with female parts, they're like, oh, I don't know, hands in the air. I don't know, I'm not me, not me. I'm not it. I'm not it. So I had, yeah, I mean, like that's not okay. This is why the education that I do is so important because I'm forcing you to get out of your bubble. I don't care if you're male, female, or penguin. You've got to be able to treat all of your patients no matter what's going on with them. I don't like sexual assault calls. Okay, they're not fun for me whether it's male or female. I don't like that. I don't like people being having their body violated by someone else, but I'm treating them. I don't like a drunk driver hits family, the whole family's dead call. Like, I don't like those calls either, but I have to treat the person in the other vehicle that's completely intoxicated, has no idea where they are, and they don't even know that they were driving. So some of that is some gender stuff, but I would say that the other part of that is really just I'm not comfortable, so I'm choosing to be out. You put a uniform on that day, you don't get that option anymore. Personally, I don't believe you do.
Yeah, no, I agree because this is still a male dominated industry.
Correct.
Fire, EMS, the EMS numbers have changed significantly in the last few years,
Sure.
but fire is still a male dominated service. Police is still a male dominated service.
Correct.
That's you don't get to, like you said, you don't get to pick and choose. I understand that you're uncomfortable, but what's the big push in the last few years is be comfortable being uncomfortable. And if
Right.
you know that you have, yeah, that like that fear, or if you know that you're uncomfortable with a certain thing, like take the time to educate yourself or get education from somebody else about a subject that you're uncomfortable with.
Right, right. Yeah, I had a this was I was still a midwifery student. No, like as in I had graduated, but essentially would have been doing like what my FTO time would have been in EMS, but I'm wearing my midwife hat. And we had a mom that had she was so used to being my instructor that I think it was really hard for her to go, "Oh, like you're an equal now."
Yes.
Right? So she's looking at me like, why haven't you delivered the placenta? And I'm looking at her trying to have a conversation with her with my eyeballs, like, it's not coming out, broad. Um, and she's like, did the whole like elbow, I'll try. And she's like, oh yeah. Because no, you're not having words. You're having, and you know what I'm talking about. Like you've done that with your EMT, you've done that with your firefighter, like whatever. I have too. And she goes, oh shit, it's not coming out. Right. So we had what's called a placental accreta, which is extremely rare, and I'll explain all of that in a second. But I called 911, and we were really far from the hospital, and I was like, well, I could land, because I'm also practicing as an EMS professional during this time. So I was like, could I land a bird? Because I'll just call dispatch. I'm using all the things. I was like, no, let's just do ground transport. Like this will be the most reliable. So we do that, and the fire department comes in, and they just stood there. They didn't move, and I'm looking at them. I said, "Hey, guys." And I put my EMS hat on for a second and was basically like doing, I'm in charge, incident commander. Boom, 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 boom. Do these things, and they're like, okay. So they got all this stuff. I'm like, you're the muscle. I have to stay here because I am now doing bimanual compression on this woman, right? Like I can't move now. So you have to lift her. I can't do that. Like, do your job. So we're driving to the hospital and stuff. And I went with them because that's what you should do. You should take your midwife with you if you're doing a transport. And the awesome paramedic, which I didn't know is a completely different department. So I don't know who this person is. It's not someone I've worked with before. I don't know them. Was so awesome and was like, hey, what do you need me to do? How should we do this? And I was like, I need you to be the paramedic. Please do all the paramedic things. I will do the EMS stuff. The midwife stuff. And he's like, that's awesome. Great. Let's do some co-care. That sounds great. And I was like, yes. That's awesome. So those things you can work really well in those situations together. But when we don't practice those, like crew resource management, that sounds great in a continuing education course. But if you haven't practiced that stuff in real world, and I don't just mean CPR, okay? Like I mean other aspects of EMS, you're going to be fumbling the ball when things happen. You're going to not understand how to have several different providers on scene and how to work together. I've had EMS units show up on scene where I've had to send them away. It was for a non-emergent transfer. So let me just clear that up real quick.
That's good.
Where I've had to send them away because it was a turf war when they showed up. They were physically put hands on me, pushing me out of the way, going, where is she? Where are you holding her? Like I kidnapped a pregnant woman on the streets and forced her to have a home birth. Like, broad, she paid me to do this. Like there's a contract.
So why is it important for a midwife to go into with the ambulance anytime you're going to the hospital?
Right, because I know everything about her. I know everything about her medical history that you don't have access to. And I have a broader scope of practice in certain things, and you have a different scope of practice in other things because I'm not wearing both hats, and most midwives are not paramedics.
No,
So it's important for us to keep both of our roles and work together. I know how to do all of the midwife stuff. I'm asking you to just get me to the hospital because what we planned on doing at home isn't fitting, no, and I hate the word normal, but isn't fitting normal anymore. Or she just chose to do she made the decision. I don't want to do this anymore. You say that once in front of, as a midwife, you say that one time in front of me, it's game over. And everybody and all my patients know that. If you say I don't want to do this anymore, there is no going back at that time, because I take your rights as a person so seriously. And I do not want you to feel trapped, endangered, not heard, whatever. So everyone knows.
So that's like your safety
It's
code,
my
like
safe
word
word.
or
Yeah.
safe phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. It's my safe phrase. Yeah,
So you're
for sure.
essentially practicing as like a primary care practitioner for these young
Correct.
ladies. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So having all of that knowledge, such as what blood type is she, her G's and P's, how did her last pregnancies go, all that stuff that you, the EMS provider, want so much, and me, when I'm the EMS provider, want so much and need to do our job is great. But being able to have a mom who was having some postpartum hemorrhage that I didn't feel comfortable with, hence why I was transporting, and look at a paramedic and go, hey, can you put her on the monitor? Can I have a blood pressure every 3 minutes, please? Can you monitor her temperature? I need these things.
Yeah.
That was amazing, being able to get all that info as I'm doing the meds. When I've maxed out my Pitocin, being able to look at you as the paramedic and go, got any TXA? Want to do this together? That'd be great, because you have access to things I don't have. Unfortunately, I think it's bull honky, but unfortunately, midwives in the US, we don't have TXA. So,
That's crazy.
we have Methergin, Cytotec, and PIT. So those are usually what we're using pre-hospital. Um, and if you got some critical care people, they know about Cytotec and Methergin. So that would be, if I've maxed that stuff out, you might have TXA, and that's great. I don't have that, so let's work together. But you're not going to know what I've done and what I haven't done if you don't take me with you.
Right.
It just makes sense.
So you're getting two like pretty, we'll define them as like primary care roles, being a midwife and a paramedic. Do you have family members and friends just coming at you all the time? Like, hey, what do I do for this? What do I do for this?
Yeah, believe it or not, I don't like to answer questions about everyone's vagina while I'm trying to have dinner. Um, yeah, not my most favorite thing. I've had to work really hard over the years to really set boundaries with people on, hey, like, I'd like to just be Jessica today. I'm just Jessica. Like, can we just go out and be friends today and just be, believe it or not, I like other things outside of medicine. I have other wants, desires, needs, interests. I'm a book nerd. I love collecting antiques. I need 100 acres and a bunch of mini goats. Like, there are other things I like and enjoy to talk about and have interest in besides this. And so I try to set boundaries of, hey, between office hours, business time, sure. And my friends as you get older, you kind of start to whittle down your friend group a little bit. And my friends are normally really good at saying, hey, so I have a question regarding X. Would you have time for me to ask you a question about that? And when would that be good for you? And normally I'm like, I will reply with, is this an emergency? Because if it is, sure, and you're my friend, I'll drop everything for you. But if it's not, I'll talk to you on Thursday at 12.
That's
Right? So
fantastic. Yeah.
that's great. Am I perfect about that? No. Are my friends perfect? Are my family? No, absolutely not. But I am working really hard to set those boundaries because sometimes it is a little bit draining. You know, you're everybody's medical power of attorney.
Yeah.
You're everybody's so my doctor just gave me this new med. What does that mean? You just spent an hour with that doctor. Did you not ask? Well,
Yeah.
I forgot. I mean, okay. I don't know if other professions deal with this, like do lawyers and plumbers and what, I don't know. Maybe
I
they deal with
guarantee
this
they
too.
do. I
For
guarantee
sure.
they do. Anybody in any type of expert position,
Yeah.
yeah, is going to do that. I think you said previously that you're really good friends with Stacy. Is that correct? Light
Mm-hmm.
Sirens Action.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys talk medical talk at all?
I mean, from time to time we do, but I think we're I think we talk way more about other like yeah other things than
That's
we do.
awesome.
We're both gardening nerds.
She has turtles. I love that she has turtles.
Uh, yeah, she does. And if I haven't gotten an update on those turtles in a while, I'll have to be like, "Hey, turn the turtle cam on," which is obviously her cell phone. Um, and I get updates, which is great. They're hibernating now, so it's a bit of a bummer.
That's so awesome. I love that. I love that we can set boundaries and then also have friends in EMS, but don't talk EMS because there's just a mutual agreement
Yeah.
between all parties. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, and yesterday I actually reached out and was like, "Hey, I have a problem, but I need to know like I have it's medicine EMS like it's business related. Can you talk?" And she's like, "Hey, I got a few minutes. What do you got?" Which is great. I mean, I have other friends that are in EMS, but maybe they specialize in mental health, right? And I might bounce some things off of them regarding stuff. Like we all help each other business wise and such, but I also shoot them a text message to go, "Hey, I was just thinking about you today.
That's
You know,
awesome.
I like you as a person, not just because you offer something to me," right? Which is
Yeah.
important, and it can sometimes be difficult for the people. There's a very particular personality in medicine in general, but I would say specifically EMS, which is we're very straight shooters most of the time. And so sometimes that can be, it has its pros and cons. And I would say one of the cons is sometimes we don't reach out just to reach out. And so
Yes.
that's something that I'm working on too. Like, "Hey, just wanted to let you know I was thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day." Or, "Hey, I just wanted you to know you're a kick-ass kind of human. Thanks for being my friend."
Yeah, I think we all need to be a little bit better about that. But I do think it is getting better, and that is a great ending point. So, Jessica, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out, but I want to give you the opportunity to do any shout outs and then tell us where we can find you.
So you can find me on the combatmidwife.com is my website, it has all my socials and all my connections. And it also has all of the classes where I'll currently be. So if you want to just come on your own and not have a department class or whatever, you can just attend. So it has kind of the schedule of where I will be for the year is up there. I'm always adding new classes. And then if your department really wants to host a cool conference or class or whatever, you want me to come to one of your conferences, then just reach out. I've yet to say no. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe that's a boundary issue.
That's up to you.
I think it's a great thing. So yeah, if you reach out, I'll figure out how to put together a class for your department.
That's fantastic. Amazing. And I don't know if you hear it enough, but I just want to tell you that I am so freaking proud of you. Like, you have come so far as an independent woman, and you are doing all of these really cool things, and you're doing some amazing education. Please keep up the good work.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you. I feel like I got a hug today.
You
Thank
got
you.
that hug. It's
Thank
virtual, but you
you.
got it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today on the 911 Nonsense podcast. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Sam. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.